Federal prosecutor Joe Moreno. Joe, I wanted to start with the comments from the witness called by Republicans, Jonathan Turley, a regular on this show. He said that the case wasn't quite there, that more time was needed, but he didn't dismiss outright the basis for the investigation.
That's right, Michelle, and I think we heard a very different tone from the three witnesses who were called by the Democrats. Professor Turley, who was the sole Republican witness, he came at it very objectively. He said, look, there could be a case, maybe there is, maybe there's not. There are factual questions here, there are process questions here, and his big takeaway was, don't rush this, because if you ram this through on a pure power exercise, you're going to leave the American public behind. That was very different than what we heard from the Democrat experts, who were wholeheartedly in support of impeachment. Personally, I think Professor Turley was much more effective as coming across as a sober, objective expert in these areas and answering the kinds of questions that many of us who are still on the fence here really want to know.
You mentioned there that the three witnesses, the three legal scholars called by Democrats, all supported, so there was enough grounds for impeachment. Were they making the same argument, or did they give different reasons for that?
They seem like they were in complete lockstep, both with the Democrat majority who was asking them the questions, as well as with each other. And, again, I can call 100 legal scholars and get 100 different opinions. I don't think it necessarily helps if the purpose of this hearing was to possibly change minds and educate members of Congress and the American public to get people that simply towed the line with what the Democrat majority asked them. So, again, these are respected scholars, certainly entitled to their opinions, and I may be interested in those opinions in some forum. I just don't know if they do anything in this particular case other than just to add to the noise and the partisanship that both sides are already engaged in.
I think what Joe was, Jonathan, I beg your pardon, Joe, was pointing to was the timeline. I think the point he was making was, look, it's not that the record doesn't contain direct evidence of the president stating a quid pro quo. It's that, and I'm quoting him here, the committee didn't subpoena the key witnesses who had direct knowledge. He's talking about Mick Mulvaney, the chief of staff, or Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, the Energy Secretary, Rick Perry. These were the people that had day-to-day involvement with the president who would know whether there was that quid pro quo.
Correct, Christian. And that's a key point here. This case, the evidence here is largely incomplete, right? And there is a way to complete it, and that is to subpoena these witnesses, work through the courts, and ultimately compel their testimony and hear from them. That is possible. It's doable. It takes time and will require some patience. But that, in my opinion, and it sounds like in Professor Turley's opinion, that's the right way to go about this. By simply saying, we invited them to testify, they said no thank you, and now we're moving forward, not just with the impeachment case, but also alleging obstruction of justice. It's way too far. And again, that may appeal to the Democrat base that's already in favor of impeaching the president, but it's not going to change a single mind as to anyone who's really trying to take a step back and say, what do I believe here? And how can I fairly look at the evidence for both sides?
Joe Moreno, always good to see you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Michelle.